Welcome back, thanks for tuning in. In the last video I put together a very simple jig for the purpose of being able to cut very quick, very simple 45-degree cuts like these. And the reason for it is I want to add in miter joints into my strength tests. So far I've been doing 90s with glue and with different size drill holes for dowels and seeing which ones are stronger, and I need to add something else into that. So what I'm going to do is two of these are going to be glued together as just a straight glue miter joint. We'll see how that compares to the 90. And the other two I want to reinforce them with dowels. Now, for that purpose I do need to make another jig. Now, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this because I'm not entirely sure that I will be using miter joints with dowels in them much in the future. May change my mind if it turns out to be really strong. But I want to make sure whatever I do is quick and simple and repeatable. So 2 videos ago I had put together brass inserts that I can use in any sort of alignment. I can set them into various pieces of wood, and that way I can cut or drill the miters quick and simple, and then I can pull those inserts out, put them in something else. So that's, going forward, what I want is my jigs to be able to handle that. So that's the plan here. I'm going to cut up 4 pieces of wood. This is just some scrap hardwood plywood I had laying around. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut 45s on the ends of them. That was my plan. And as I said in the beginning of this, I wanted this to be quick and simple and easy. It doesn't turn out to be that way. Whenever you want to do these things, it just sometimes just doesn't work out. And this particular project turned out to be that. This is a 16-minute video. And it should have been a 6-minute video, but this plan here, the first one, just didn't work at all. You'll see as we progress. And like I said, I want to make this simple and I want to make it quick. But anyway, let's see how this goes. So I have this lined up now. I'm very happy with those 2 45s. There's a few things I've done with them since then, and I've made some preliminary checks to see if I can widen it, and it works out really quite well, which is nice. As you can see, it cuts very simple and very quick 45s as long as I pay attention. Right there, see the gap at the bottom? I'm not paying attention, but the nice thing about it is I'm going to spot that in a second, and it is easy to just stick it back in, and there you go, that's where it needs to be, and recut it. Because these are just tests, it doesn't matter how big they are, so it wasn't a big deal. I suppose if we were doing this for a project and each of the pieces were meant to be a specific size, well, that piece would obviously be completely wasted. But anyway, it's an easy fix in this particular case. So I cut these 4, and I'm going to set them up in the pattern I wanted. And I found as I sat them together like this, first off, the cut is nice and square and the miter is good. I did, like I said, a couple of minor trims to this, and you can see it sets up nicely. Everything's nice and square, which is great. And then what I did is sat them down together and came to the conclusion that 2 was not enough. There was not enough meat here. You'll see here in a second, I'm going to set these are where these are going to sit. There's going to be another piece that's going to go in there as well to hold them in place. But now when I set in the brass insert, there wasn't enough space. It would have been a very, very small amount of material, and I didn't want, obviously, to make this and have it split or do anything else. So I decided to add 1 more, as you can see here. And the next brainstorm I had was just to glue these all together, clamp them up, and then it should be good to go. The problem is this needs to be very, very accurate. I can't just have any kind of slippage at all, and unfortunately, gluing this up, it would have kept sliding back and forth. I had a terrible time trying to get the first one to line up properly. The second one went really quite well, but unfortunately, because one of them was inaccurate, that threw the whole thing off. So long story short, this whole process got scrapped. Which means instead of making this quick and simple like I wanted to, I had to think of another way of doing this. You're going to see as I put this together, obviously these 2 are going to slide back and forth. But it's not a big deal normally. Just a matter of, like I said, just clamping them and we're good. I know a lot of people use salt and other things to keep them from doing that sliding. I've never tried it. If anyone has used that and they find it works well, let me know, because the few times that I've seen people use it, they don't continue to use it, so I'm not entirely sure if there is an issue with it. So anyway, if anyone's had any experience with that, just let me know about it, 'cause, if it is a good thing and just fell out of fashion, like lots of things seem to do, let me know. So as you can see here, they keep sliding back and forth, and I'm not going to show you all of this part because I end up scrapping this one and going on to do it a different way. But yeah, every time I put a little bit of pressure on that, the center one would just move around, which is odd because it's flat. All of it's flat. There shouldn't be any real need for it to shift, but it just kept on moving. I think I spent about 10-15 minutes trying to get this one lined up properly, and then just gave up on it. And the other one worked, like I said, worked out well, but anyway, all that matters is this was not accurate enough. So first off, what I did is I took, this is the jig, the first one, to see and make sure it was accurate. And as you can see, it slides in nicely. Everything's nice and 45. I was going to say square, but it's obviously 45. And then I'm going to put it in the one I cut. This is the piece that I'm going to use for the miter joint. Again, slide it along, and it butts really nicely. Very happy with that. It's very nice and smooth and exactly what I want it to be. And this is the end result of making, well, all of that. And you're going to see as I set this up here, it's going to be very clear at the end of this video, like the end of this clip, but there's just a slight difference, and that's not acceptable. You can see a little bit there. You can see it again here in a second. I'm trying it at a different angle, trying to get a better shot for you guys here. And as I tilt this back and forth, hold on a sec, get it in place. There you go. Now you can see it's just there. Oh, tilt up. There you go. There's the gap. And that's it. That's all it takes. Way too much of a problem. So I switched over to doing 90s. Exactly the same process, except now I'm doing 90s, so it's a lot simpler. That's what I thought anyway. Again, I wanted, like I said, the whole point of doing this was just to do something quick and simple. But I ended up having to reinforce this one as well. And not a big deal because it was easily fixable. But so what I'm going to do here first off is I am going to put my standard, the first mitre gauge I put on here, and I'm just going to do what I always do, just drill holes, glue everything up, pound in some mitre, some dowels, and that's all it really takes. And then I'm going to glue these two pieces together. And like I said, it's very straightforward, very simple, but this needs to be as close to perfect as I can get because it's going to affect the miter joints. And if there's a small gap because these things are ever so slightly out of alignment, then it's not going to be a solid fit. And so I spent way more time than I wanted to on this, trying to get everything exactly where I wanted it. It's fine. In the end, it worked out fine. So what I'm going to do here, once this is done, there's the next step is to, I ended up buying a digital angle block, protractor, whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to use that to double check everything. That's going to be in the next video. As it turns out, like I said, they are very accurate. I'm very happy with how this all turned out. So the plan going forward is to use the digital protractor to set this up very accurately in the vise so I can drill as best as I can holes that when I put in the brass inserts that I've made, they are going to line well enough that when I do the dowel joints for the miters, the holes that I'm drilling in will match on the other side the holes that come out, so everything looks nice and even, which is the whole point of doing this sort of thing, not just for strength but for it to look nice. And that is part of my plan. And as you see, they don't always work out because I end up messing up that particular dowel joint. Not a big deal here because I just flipped it around, and I am cutting these off anyway, so they're all nice and square. It's just, like I said, this is the kind of week I was having. Most of my plans weren't working out as well as I had hoped. In the end, it worked out fine. It turned out to be only ever so slightly out of square. But because this has to be very, very accurate, I am going to have to force it into being perfectly square. So this has all been trimmed up. One other thing I need to do, because this has to This has to sit in with a clamp. I can't just leave the miters sitting there by themselves. It all has to be held in it, and that point isn't going to work. I need to cut that off. And this is going into I don't know what number of errors, but I made a mistake here as well. This one's perfectly fine. I just trimmed that off, and then I flipped it over and didn't seat it properly. As you can see here, it's going to twist just ever so much, which unfortunately ruined that particular one. Again, I'm not least wasting material here. This is just a simple matter of just taking more off than I was planning. It turns out perfectly fine in the end. I'm going to do a few more passes, square and clean everything up, and in the end, it's perfectly serviceable. Again, this is just a jig, so it doesn't need to even look pretty, but it turned out fine in the end. And so I'm going to do a couple more adjustments here, and then there we go. It has a flat edge now. And now what I need to do is make a block for the inside of this so that I can put clamping force on this and force it into being perfectly square. Fortunately, I have a really good 45 now, so I'm just going to trim off the edge here. And that is one of the few things that worked out really well, which is nice. It's got to happen every now and then. So I'm going to clamp that into, here you go, clamp that in. It's now being held so that everything's perfectly square. And then what it is, I cut a block so it fit perfectly on the outside edges of that. I'm going to mark this up, and then what I'm going to do is cut out the side that you can see here. I don't need more than just an L, and I'm going to do that. First I started off using this on the saw sled here, but it was just a little bit off as far. I wanted to make sure this was as flush as possible so I didn't have any issues lining everything up. So I moved over to the bandsaw. One of the things I don't show very often because, as you can see here, the lighting's not the best, and end up with the camera not focusing properly. You'll see it'll go in and out of focus a little bit. But that's what I did for the last bit here. I just trimmed ever so slightly on this. And the nice thing about the bandsaw, of course, as well, is I can do a flush right to the end of the corner here, whereas if I was using the saw blade on the table saw, it gives you a round edge. So this turned out really nice. Gave me a nice square piece, and you can see this is scrap wood. This was part of my daughter's bookcase a long time ago, and she used to, well, when she was young, draw all over it. Doesn't matter, it's all getting sanded off anyway, but there you go, reusing everything. So I'm going to mark the holes here, and because of the setup for this, I'm not going to use any jigs because I didn't have anything. I am, as I said, going forward trying to make as many as possible, but for the moment I don't really have one for this particular setup. So I'm just going to mark the holes and pre-drill them, and then it's just a simple matter of clamping everything in place, and then of course doing everything else the way I have set them up before. Now this video has gotten really long, and I apologize for that. So part of what I'm going to continue in next video is going to be this stuff going forward. So I am going to show you, like I said, I'm going to use that digital protractor angle block to show you how accurate that is. I was actually very happy about that. And then I'm going to use that to set up in a vise, and I'm going to drill this so I can do that miter joint. The one test miter joint I need for testing miter joints for strength with dowels. That's what all this is for, which is really ridiculous considering the amount of time I put into this. I think in total, I don't know, about half a day I think I wasted on this one job if you added it all together. Obviously there's times for glue to dry and that sort of stuff. We added it all up. It was way too much for what I had initially intended it for. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to clamp this down, and then fairly soon the end of this video will end, and I'm just going to make those miters. Now you can see the corner there, that's very simple to cut off. I'll just flush cut that once the glue is all dried. Doesn't need to come off really. The most important thing here is to make sure that this is clamped firmly, and the dowels of course are going to hold it in place. It turned out really well. One thing I did here differently, because I didn't want to put too much, I didn't want to pound on this, so I did go up one drill bit size. And again, the whole purpose of all this to see if any of this really matters. And I've noticed as I've watched a fair number of videos from various channels, A lot of people set these up so that they can actually just insert them by hand, and they obviously don't seem to have any issues. I haven't had any issues at all with any of them I've done. So one size up, you'll see here, it goes in quite easily. It won't go all the way in by finger pressure, but it is, there you go, very straightforward to tap these into place. And if this turns out to be just as strong as the ones I have to pound in, I am definitely going to go this way, because it makes this so much simpler to do. And that's always part of my goal for all these things. Let's keep these things simple and easy. That way it's repeatable, and you don't get tired of doing them. So that's basically the end of the video. I'm going to set this up and let it clamp it thoroughly, make sure everything's nice and square, and let it cure. And in the next video, as I said, I'm going to finish trimming this up, and then what I'm going to do is do a bunch of tests as far as angles, and then of course I'm going to put in my brass inserts and do up those miter joints. So thanks very much for watching. Thank you for my patience. I don't always want to just show you things that work. I'm going to show you stuff that I screw up, because I do that an awful lot. And anyway, it's how we all learn, especially me. And again, thanks for watching. Leave comments, let me know what you think about all this, and I'll see you in the next video, and bye for now.